episode 9. Let's go, let's go. All right. So today's episode, special episode, the topic of discussion is, are you living up to your vows?
Yes.
So today,
are you living up to your vows?
Right,
guys?
and we're talking about your marriage vows, right? So what we did was we gathered a couple of notes, a couple of bullets, just to go over some of the vows that we're going to discuss today. I'm going to let Tobias start, but Tobias, I'm going to start off with.
So there's a few vows that are shared between a man and a woman in a marriage, but there are vows that are particularly for a man and vows particularly for a woman. And what we're going to go through today, just for clarity, is we're going to go through those for each gender. Okay? So Tony, you're going to read off what those vows are, and then we'll get into it.
All right? So that everybody's clear. So for the husband, we chose love and cherish, faithfulness, provider and protector, and then support and comfort. And then for the wife, we'll go over love and respect, faithfulness, helper and partner, and support and comfort. But we're going to only focus on 2 just for time being. So Tobias, I'll let you start with provider and protector.
Yeah, so when you look at the vows, you'll see that provider and protector is particular for the man. And a good provider or provider period is someone who's given their resources to the marriage, to the relationship, whatever you want to call it. Provider is not someone who gets what they have or has their resources, acquires resources, and doesn't share it with their family. To me, I don't think that's a real man that does things like that. You're being selfish, you're all for yourself. I think that a man leads in a marriage, but a man is the first one to give in a marriage. So you lead by example. You're leading by giving first before anyone else in the household gives. So if I receive something, I'm the leader of the household. That doesn't mean that I'm a tyrant. When I get things, I keep them to myself. I don't share with my family. I think that's crazy. If you have a plan on doing something like that, or if you do things like that, you're not ready to be in a marriage, and you have to be honest with yourself. When you get in a marriage and you take a vow to be a provider, you have to keep your word as a man. To me, if a man doesn't keep his word, he's not worth much. So if you made these vows and you refuse to keep them, that goes to show what type of individual you are, period. Your word has to be bond with everything when you're a man. So providing, being a provider, is sharing your resources, sharing what you have with your family. And you're being the first one to do that. Hopefully, your family sees that and they understand that's how they want the household to be as well. So what happens with those actions is your wife is willing to share everything she has with the household. Your child or children are willing to share everything they have with the household. You see, this causes a domino effect because the man who is the leader is the first one to give to the household, to make sure everyone is good, everyone is doing fine and prepared for what they need to be prepared for throughout their life or throughout the day or throughout the week, whatever you want to call it. But providing is preparing everyone to do the things they need to do. Okay? Just a tad bit more on that one. When a man leads and he provides for the household, the woman will do the same thing. When you have the opposite happening, as far as the man is now providing everything he has to the household, you'll start to see the woman do that as well. Now women are more connected to babies when they're growing up. So what that means is that the woman is going to take care of her child by nature. So you're not going to share in the resources your woman may acquire. Your woman may acquire some things she wasn't expecting. So if she gets something in abundance, she's not going to be willing to share it with you. She'll share with the child because it's the woman's nature to take care of their child. A man, the same thing. But on the flip side, if you're not providing, you're keeping everything to yourself, the woman is more likely by nature to supply the child. When the child gets older and bigger, then there is a bond or more of a connection between the child and the father.
Let me ask you a question, Tobias. So when you said that the man leads, right?
Yes.
Him being a provider, can you
Yes.
provide an example, which you said your word is your bond, which is correct.
Yes.
What else? Because I think a lot of times people have difficulties, or it's very challenging when the man doesn't lead and when he's not providing, because that's pressure on the female. I hear a lot of people I know or have been in conversation with, which they say, because of such and such, you know, they're aggravated, they're working more than usual. What do you think that contributes to? Because the man is failing to provide, or he doesn't know how to provide, he doesn't know how to take lead, or do you think that's a trust issue?
I think if someone is upset because the female in this case is upset because she's providing more than the male, we have to actually see what the man is doing.
Okay.
Is that true, or is that just
Our perception?
your perception, which may not be what it actually is?
Okay.
So for instance, if you're trying to achieve a goal, let's say you want a $120,000 vehicle, right? And your husband is on board with you saying, okay, fine, we can get that. Let's work towards getting that. But let's say you're the one that's fortunate enough to get a second job that's a good job. You have a job, right? But your husband only has one job, right? He's not able to get a job within the time frame that allows him to work that second job. So you must understand that, okay, maybe the timing isn't good because he's helping out the household while you're out doing the double job or two jobs. So we have to really look at what's going on here. Now, if you're feeling that way, again, you need to come past your feelings and look at what's actually happening. If this guy is just sitting on a couch, if he's not contributing anything, he's not, helping out around the house when you're out working two jobs, you should feel upset. You see the lack of help that this man is providing. So the man is willing to share what he has.
Resources, right? As much as possible.
Right, but he doesn't have nothing because he's not striving for anything. That's different than someone who is striving for things and providing everything that they have. The big question here, and I think what answers your question is the man doing everything that he can do?
And he should be, right?
Right.
Right.
I mean, when it comes to your family, that should be a no-brainer.
But it's not. For
It's
you, it
not.
may be. For Daddy T, it may be. But for some men, it's not. And I think that's the challenge that a lot of people go through in these relationships, in these marriages, because, and it's in the comment section now, women by nature feel that they do more, right?
Yeah.
They go above and beyond, and that's going to get into my part as far as being the helper, right?
Yeah.
We just, we're born to just be your rib, a soulmate, just to, whatever you need, I'm going to do it, right?
Yeah.
But why do you think that some men don't take that initiative to go above and beyond? Why do you think? Do you think it's the area that they're raised in? Do you think they get comfortable too quickly? And a lot of times, I hate to say it, I hear about our black men. And I hate to hear that, because I would love to think that it's just not a small population or a small percentage that wants to provide for their family. But it's been said by many that a lot of times our race, we just settle and we're just comfortable. So what do you think?
I think anyone can get too comfortable. And I think you made a mistake with vetting your spouse, if that's what you have. You need to vet your spouse. You need to understand who you're dealing with and who you're marrying. Okay. Just because you like somebody doesn't mean they should be your spouse. Okay. You haven't done enough analytics on the person to be married to them if this is your outcome. All right. So if you feel the person is lazy, they don't help out, they don't provide, they don't offer what they have to take care of their household, you should have never married that person.
What if they didn't see it in the beginning? Because a lot of times people are fooled. I hear women tell stories where they don't really show their true colors until later on in the marriage. So what do? How do they address that?
I would like to believe that, but that's not true.
People always show signs
there's
of who they are.
There's always signals of who a person is. There's always what we call red flags these days.
Okay, I can agree with that.
On who a person is.
Okay.
A tiger can't hide his stripes for long. Okay, so it's going
Okay.
to come out who that person is. I can go on and on for days about that, but I'm going to leave it right there
Okay.
because we don't have much time to go. But the other
Okay.
thing for the man, it was respect.
Yeah. You spoke
No, I'm
about
talking about, excuse me, it was
provide and protector.
provider and
It's very
protector.
important.
Okay, so protector, guys, I think that's probably self-explanatory, but I'm going to
Right.
explain it a little more. The protector of the household, it lines up with being a provider, okay? Because if you're providing for your household, you're also protecting the household. Let me explain. By protecting the household, you're making sure the household is secure. Everything that's needed in the household is provided in one sense or another. So protecting the household, my daughter understands that she doesn't have to run to a man my age to get the things she needs for herself. I'm protecting my daughter from being basically, I hate to say, pay for play type of person, but that's kind of how it measures out because she's trying to get what she wants from someone, but I'm protecting her if I'm providing that. She doesn't have to look outside to get what she needs. I'm protecting her from those sort of people that would use her just for her body or what have you. Protector also goes in the space of guarding the household when there is an intruder in the household. Okay? So a man should be the first one to run the trouble in their household.
Or out together.
Or out together.
Right. Period.
Out,
Whenever
period.
they made.
The man should be the first one to run the trouble and take care of the situation.
Right.
When I say run the trouble, I don't mean you always go to hurt someone or kill someone.
Right.
Okay?
We don't condone violence on this podcast.
Right. There are times where situations should be de-escalated. If someone breaks into your home, you have all right to protect everything in your home.
Right.
Okay? But if you're outside in the world, in the community, or wherever you're at, hanging out with your spouse, your family, everyone at the same time, whoever, you also have a responsibility to protect the family. So in this case, it may be diffusing the situation, right?
Okay.
Because there's a lot of legal technicalities out there you can get yourself caught up in. And you don't need that. As a father, as a man, you need to be present in your household. These things need to be going through your mind in a split second when you're handling a situation. Is this worth it? Is it just because you have a firearm doesn't mean you should shoot someone all the time? You understand? So does this situation require me to defend myself or my family with this firearm? What? You may be able to just have a fight, okay, and protect your family. I'm just saying be smart about it. Don't go for violence. When you're an adult or grown man, violence should never be your first choice or your first option. You need to think clearly, and you need to make a move off that clear thinking. Because again, you are needed in your household, okay? You're needed.
And if I could just add to that.
Yeah, please add to it.
From a wife's perspective, not only dealing with violence, but dealing with feelings, dealing with finances. I look at the husband as being a protector 360 with everything.
And that's
so
where
I
I'm
think
coming from.
that's something that we need to really look at. A lot of times all of us, we don't look at the same qualities and traits when we're looking at a mate, but a man's man was very important to me. I have a very big mouth. I am very opinionated, so I need someone that's going to protect me. Not to say I'm ever going to put my husband in harm's way, but I want to feel very, very comfortable wherever I'm at, right? And then I'm just going to go into, for the wife, right? Again, for those of you who may have come on late, we're talking about the vows and how important they are when in a marriage, right?
Yeah.
So we have vows for a reason. So today I'm going to go over the importance of being a helper and a partner, and that's just going to really add to what Tobias was saying. I think when you look at a wife and look at the qualities, by nature, like we already mentioned, we are helpers. And when I say helpers, we're talking about when they're going through difficulties or challenges in life, whether that be on a job, whether that be in other relationships with family or friends. It is our job to encourage. It is our job to listen attentively. It is our job to give, just be a confidant, to give the advice that is needed. When I think about a helper in a marriage, I also think about whatever he may lack or he may be short of, any type of shortcomings, we should be there just to be the backbone, right? Encouragement is big, like whatever they're passionate about. When we're looking at like hobbies and things like that, we should be able to add to it. When I think about helper, I'm thinking about family gatherings. Like, you should be the backbone, my wives, right? And future wives, to say, we're going to host such and such. You want to make sure he keeps that connection with his family. He keeps that connection with his real friends. You should keep that going. When it comes to finances, by nature, women, Tobias tries sometimes when I'm juggling everything that I'm trying to juggle, but we should be really controlling that household. Yes, this is the leader. Yes, this is the front. He's taking lead. But at the end of the day, we should make sure such and such gets done. I'm not saying that you have all the responsibilities, but we should say, hey, babe, it's time to change one of the filters. Hey, babe, we need to do such and such. Like, we should be the one that's responsible for that. When it comes to goals, we should be the one that's just, the biggest cheerleader. That's what I think about when I'm thinking about a helper, right? I'm thinking, I'm really thinking about that backbone. If they have something that they really want to do, we should be the one to say, you can do it. And even if we think it's not possible, list reasons on if this person is passionate about opening up this business, if this person is passionate about completing this master's degree, whatever it may be, we should really be that backbone. When I think about helper, I think about regarding the kids, regarding your house being clean. And I know it can be difficult. For some of us, we may need housekeepers, but it's always good when a man, and I'm not saying that the man can't have any of those chores, but we should be really the person to ensure that that man feels comfortable when they're coming inside or when they're getting off of work or when they're coming home from their business, right? We should make sure that the household is really taken care of. And again, like Cuz and what Mommy mentioned, yes, a helpmate. Cooking, Deborah mentioned, that's something that I've mastered. And I know my husband loves my cooking, right? And it hasn't been always like that. In the beginning, I never had to cook because I come from a cooking family. But the man needs to feel comfort when they come into the household. That's what I'm talking about as being a helper.
And just to add to that real quickly. So the helper is a vow that the woman is taken in marriage, but that doesn't mean the man doesn't add his 2 cents and helps out as well. So for me personally, there are certain things I don't wait for Tony to do. Right. If I see something needs to be cleaned, I clean it. For instance, if I have a dish or a pan that I've used, I'm going to clean it. I'm not going to wait for Tony to come home at the end of the day to clean something that I can do myself. One, because I find it tacky to have a house in disarray. That's one. Two, I don't like things out of order. So when the pan is finished being used, I clean it, I put it away. So it's just the point I'm making is that helper goes for the man as well. You don't just sit back and let everything pile up on your woman.
That's right. And let me just add what's important when I think about helper too that I failed to mention is you have to pray for your husband. Yeah. Pray for him and pray with him. Yeah. As many times during our marriage, I do it all the time, but it's times that Tobias didn't even know I'm on my hands and knees praying when he sleep 3 and 4 in the morning or wake up at 5 and pray. You have to make sure that you cover him. You are the closest person to him, so you should be covering him. You should be giving him reassurance that everything is going to be okay. And Absolutely. I think people don't look at marriage that deep, but it really is, because if they can't depend on you and vice versa, as their helpmate, as that soulmate, as that rib, why would they really need you? And I think we need to really look at that. Like, what do we need you for? And vice versa. If this person can't protect me, can't provide for me, why do I need him? If I can't give him reassurance, encouragement, tell him things that he needs to hear. Forget about wanting to hear and talking about ego, but things that he needs to hear. Correct. Why would I be valuable, right? And I think that's things that we really need to look at.
Correct. Yeah, that's a good point. Did you have one more?
Yes, for myself or for you. You
No,
went
for
over
you.
you. So for
Yeah.
me, I had a partner, but I think I broke down a helper so much.
Helpful partner, that it kind
it
of flowed into the partner space.
It really does.
Yeah.
And I've seen some comments, and I was going to ask anyone, my wives or husbands or soon to be, what are some things that you do or some traits or qualities that you have when you're talking about being a helper, when you're looking for a provider? I'm very interested to know. TT said no one is going to want to make you your wife, and I think that is so true. A lot of times people look at the appearance, or they look at the job or the business, finances, and they don't look at the whole package on, if a man can't trust you with his checkbook, he doesn't need you, right? If I can't trust you with my heart, and I think that's what happens in these relationships, why you see so many people, and it's sad, but they're really not happy because it's things that's going on inside of the marriage that people are really not living by their vows, right? And I think, that's things that need to be really addressed, because I always look at the Bible principles, and that's what they're there for. It's really there to help us, because if we do our part, and I know a lot of times it gets difficult, you get tired, right? Sometimes you don't have enough energy for yourself, but to give someone else, right? But it comes natural after a while when you really love that individual, right? And let me see. Sit back and spending time with you and realize I can do better as a help. Yep. Balance the checkbook. Yeah, those are things that we need to look at. Okay, so it's 6:22. Let's get into our marriage mailbox.
Yeah, definitely. We running a little behind on that, but
I'm sorry.
But I think there's a lot to say with Joe.
It is, and I'm thinking maybe next week we can go ahead. It's so much that we can cover with the vows, but I think it's very important.
Yeah.
So marriage mailbox, very interesting questions today. Question number 1. I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay, what's the question?
You did a lot of talking today. Maybe
I
I'll
did.
go first.
Yeah,
all right.
You go first.
How do you deal with in-laws that you don't like, have a problem with, but your spouse wants to keep them around? And we touched on this a little bit before.
Yeah, we did. A few episodes
ago, but I thought it was a very good question, especially when it's emphasized regarding have a problem with. I think when you're dealing with in-laws, I had mentioned before, in-laws need to be part of your family, right? We shouldn't even be looking at in-laws. Now, realistically, there's going to be in-laws that you don't, you're not too favorable of, right? You just don't click.
People for you.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think those conversations need to be had. Don't hide your feelings if that's something that you may be doing. I think a lot of times we hide how we feel, or we be phony and we don't really want to address the situation. What is it, maybe write this down and ask yourself these questions. What is it that you don't like about this particular individual? Are they disrespecting you?
That's good.
Is it a conflict of, maybe personalities? Sometimes we don't like people that give us the same energy that we're giving off. Are they being disrespectful? Like, what is it? Once you find that out, I think you have that conversation with your spouse to say, hey, such and such was being real disrespectful. Such and such comes in and doesn't speak. Such and such does what somebody did to me and tell me that my colors of my daughter's room is too hard and brown and pink, right? Whatever the situation may be, right? They may come up with whatever they may come up and be opinionated. You have that conversation and you address that with your spouse and then say, how can we deal with it? I don't feel comfortable when they're coming to my house. And what you don't want to do is exclude yourself when there's family functions, let's say, in their house. Because that's how the enemy divides you, right? Because you don't like that individual, so now when that side of the family has something, you don't want to participate. So don't let that happen. You want to add to that?
I think what you said was really good with you need to realize what you don't like about the person. Mm-hmm. I think if you really put that in play and think about that, that will help you out a ton. So do you dislike this family member because they tell you the right thing? You're doing the wrong thing. They're telling you the right thing. You don't want to hear the right thing. Mm-hmm. So you don't like someone correcting you on your behavior. So you dislike the person. Mm-hmm. I think that's on you, and you need to fix that. The way you fix that is you have a talk with your spouse, and you see it from someone else's vantage point. Mm-hmm. Is it you or is it the other family member that really has the issue at this point. Now, there are times when family members are just downright disrespectful, those in-laws. And what you need to do, Tony said it, hit it right on the head. You need to discuss that with your spouse immediately. Also, what you want to think about is, how is your spouse treating you around their family?
That's a good point.
So subconsciously, your spouse may be disrespecting you around their family.
And they don't even know it.
Which gives the family the green light to disrespect you as well. None of this is good. If your spouse is disrespecting you in front of their family, you need to have a talk with your spouse immediately. Okay? And in my opinion, you should have a talk with your spouse right then and there. It doesn't have to be in front of everyone.
Right.
It can be in a different room. It could be outside. And you let your spouse know, listen.
How important it is.
Right. Because sometimes we're disrespectful to people and we don't even realize it. One example is if you're talking to your spouse and you suck your teeth because your spouse said something you don't agree with. It wasn't wrong. You just don't agree with it. You suck your teeth. You roll your eyes. You make faces. Your family picks up on that.
Right.
You may be making faces behind your spouse's back. Your family will pick up on it. That's a form of disrespect. So why would your family respect your spouse if you don't?
And let me just say this too, if the spouse is listening or whatever it may be. And if that spouse, if someone comes to you to say someone in your family is being disrespectful, whatever the reason may be that your spouse doesn't like that individual, make sure that you're supportive of your spouse, right?
Absolutely.
Because like everyone mentioned, and we discussed it on other episodes, it has to be a united front.
Absolutely.
If anyone, it doesn't matter if it's an in-law, whoever, a close friend, no one comes in between your relationship. And let me make that very clear. Because the enemy will use anyone to try to come in between your relationship, right? Because a lot of time, people, they don't even realize it subconsciously. Like they don't realize that they're getting, too involved or too opinionated or asking too many questions. So it's up to you and your spouse to say, like Mommy said, no one. And everybody know I don't play it. In-law, my-law, outlaw, whoever, friend, neighbor, sister, nobody comes in between me and mine. And I think, that tone has to be set very clear to let people know. Because they will try it, okay?
Absolutely.
Let's get into question number 2.
Yeah, because we're running out of time.
All
Let's
right.
get into question number 2.
How important is it to have, this is a very good question. How important is it to have shared spiritual practices in a marriage? My husband and I have different ways of expressing our faith, and I need help.
I think you want to understand why you guys have different ways of showing or praising God. This goes to what is said in the book, which is evenly yoked.
Right.
If you're evenly yoked, you don't have this problem.
Right.
Okay?
It's deep because I know a couple of people I can think of right now. One may be Pentecostal, one may be Muslim, Christian. It's different things. And that can be difficult.
This is the problem that, you have people that are Christian and you have someone who is Jewish. We've heard of these things before. I think that when you jump into a marriage in this way, not being evenly yoked, you can't complain in the long run that you guys don't do the same things or praise the same way or worship the same way. I think what you need to do in this case, since you're married already, or someone may change in the marriage, right? You may be one
I've seen that happen.
religion when you got married, and then someone changes their beliefs as you progress in your marriage.
Right.
I think that you want to find out what the common denominator is. And I think the common denominator is you guys do believe in God, right? And I think you want to work from there. I think you lay out, if you're a Christian and someone is Jewish, for example, that you're not going to be recognizing the Sabbath.
Right.
Because you may do some work on the Sabbath that your spouse may not agree with.
Right.
I think this is being evenly yoked. And I think these type of things can destroy a marriage when it's surprise in the marriage, which means you're changing in the marriage.
Yeah.
Before the marriage, this needs to be discussed. I'll let you go because the time is running out.
Yeah, the time is running out, but I think it's a very good question, and we know a couple of people. It's very important to have respect, regardless of who's whatever their faith may be. I think we do need to continue to be in prayer because you want to be, like Tobias said, it causes a lot of confusion when you're not evenly yoked. That's why the word says that you need to be. But I think those conversations need to be had regarding, can you support me? Because it may be, whatever it may be, the holiday that they're observing, or maybe it may be an event, or maybe it can be a Jehovah's Witness, whatever it may be, and they want you to come to the hall. I think you should be supportive of the individual, of the spouse, what their faith is in. And I think it has to be respect, across both religions, right? And I think you need to be in prayer that you become evenly yoked. And I will also, to be honest with you, seek counseling, because it's going to cause a lot of confusion when you talk about raising children, when you talk about your values, different things like that. So I think I would recommend seeking counsel, being respectful, stay in constant prayer, and see if you thinking about, maybe converting to the other, religion, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So
having a good conversation on why someone
chose to practice
chooses a different religion is a good way to start this. But I think also,
if the
you guys, you guys have a foundation, which is a belief in God. I think that's a starting point to build off of. I think after that, if someone changes in the marriage, you speak to them, you ask them why are they changing, what do they find good about this particular religion or what have you. We're not religious, we're Christians, we are non-denominational. Why? Is because Jesus wasn't religious. So we don't have like a religion that says we need to do X, Y, and Z. What we need to do is follow the model that Jesus has provided for us.
Says,
So when that changes, there need to be conversations with that couple on what's really going on here, what's happening. And I think you take it from there. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this. I think you do what works for you. We have seen marriages work is where there are different denominations that are married together. So it doesn't mean that this doesn't work, but it means that you respect each one's point of view on religion or whatever else is going on. And you find a way to worship together. If possible, you find a common ground, right? But this is tough. And this is not easy. But you can work through it. Read your books, read your Bible, whatever book you believe in.
That's right.
If you're a Muslim, the Quran. If
the
accent. Whatever you have going, read your book and find out what you guys really believe in. I think that helps.
And the good thing is you got each other, right, at the end of the day. So you chose to get married knowing you both had different, ways, your belief system. So it'll work out, but you're just going to have to be steadfast, stay in that word, seek counsel, and also have those honest conversations, right? All right, so our show comes to an end.
Yeah, that's
next
it.
week.
We ran over with time,
we ran over, but it's okay. I think today was a very good show. Thank you for all your feedback.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the marriage mailbox. And make
those are
sure
good questions. Thanks.
you tune in next week. Episode 10. Episode 10.
Episode 10.
We thank you. You have an amazing day. God bless.
All right, take care.
All right, bye.